Most people assume self-knowledge is more objective than it really is. You know your patterns. You remember what you did. You have examples. So the conclusion feels earned. I'm inconsistent. I avoid conflict. I always overthink. And maybe those labels do come from real evidence. But here's the harder question. How objective is the process you use to collect that evidence? Because self-knowledge is not only built from behavior, it is also built from attention, interpretation, memory, and emphasis. You do something once, and your mind decides whether it matters. You finish a project. Does that count? You speak clearly in a difficult moment. Does that count? You protect your time. Does that count? For many people, the answer depends less on the action itself and more on whether the action fits the model they already have. This is one of the strangest things about self-perception. A label can feel objective not because it has complete evidence behind it, but because it has familiar evidence behind it. This is where Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman offers a useful lens. Kahneman's work on judgment helps explain why a conclusion can feel coherent, familiar, and convincing even when the information behind it is incomplete. This insight is not a summary of the book. We are using that idea to examine something more personal. Why a familiar conclusion about yourself can start feeling like objective self-knowledge, even when part of the evidence has been ignored or explained away. And familiar evidence feels persuasive. You may have repeated a sentence about yourself so many times that it now feels like observation instead of interpretation. But interpretation is still there. Maybe you say, I'm bad at consistency. What gets included in that conclusion? The routines you dropped, the systems you abandoned, the days you lost momentum. What gets minimized? The responsibilities you sustained, the time structure helped, the tasks you completed even when motivation was low. The issue is not whether the negative evidence is real. The issue is whether the total sample is distorted. And once you start looking for distortion, another uncomfortable possibility appears. Some people do not only suffer from inaccurate praise, they also suffer from overconfident self-criticism. They think they are being honest. What they may actually be doing is treating a partial data set as if it were the whole file. This matters because the label you trust becomes the lens you use. If you trust I avoid conflict, then every avoided conversation feels significant. Every clear conversation becomes special circumstance. If you trust I never follow through, then every unfinished effort feels diagnostic. Every completed effort becomes an exception. The model survives not only because the behavior repeats, but because the interpretation protects the model. That is why better self-awareness is not always more emotional. Sometimes it is more methodological. Instead of asking only, what do I believe about myself? Ask, what evidence keeps feeling obvious to me? What evidence keeps feeling irrelevant? What do I downgrade immediately? And what kind of conclusion would I draw if I had to review my own behavior with more context and less loyalty to the familiar story? A more accurate self-description is often less dramatic, less global, less final. Not, I am inconsistent. Maybe, I am less consistent when I depend on motivation and more consistent when structure is clear. Not, I avoid conflict. Maybe, I become less direct when I expect disapproval. That kind of statement is less satisfying if you enjoy certainty, but it is much more useful if you want change. Because a precise conclusion gives you something to work with. A vague identity gives you something to surrender to. So here is a small challenge. The next time you reach for a sentence that sounds like self-knowledge, pause before trusting the confidence behind it. Ask, is this the full picture, or just the version of the evidence my mind has learned to make easiest to see? Because sometimes what feels like deep self-awareness is only a familiar form of selective attention. And the goal is not to think better of yourself. It is to see yourself with more accuracy than the old label allowed. In the next part of this living library route, we will move one step further. If better evidence matters, what kind of behavior actually gives the model new data? Be prosperous from the inside out.